If you live in a warm climate and do not experience harsh winters, you can grow tropical passion fruit at home. The plant can be a little finicky and needs room to spread out, but with enough attention and care, it will provide you with a steady yield of delicious fruit. Use fresh seeds. Freshly harvested passion fruit seeds germinate quickly, but older, dry seeds can take months to germinate if they grow at all. A few days before you intend to plant the seed, buy ripe passion fruit from the store. Open it and collect at least half a dozen seeds. Spread the seeds out onto burlap and rub them until the juice sacs burst open. Wash the seeds in water, and allow them to dry for 3 to 4 days before washing them again and drying them in the shade. If you plant the seeds immediately, they should germinate within 10 to 20 days. If you need to store the seeds, place them in airtight plastic bags and refrigerate them for up to 6 months. Ideally, you should start passion fruit vines in a separate, protected container and later transplant them to your prepared garden spot. Choose a container that is no larger than 90 square centimeters. Fill the container with a soil mixture made from equal parts compost, topsoil, and coarse sand. Fill the container with 10 centimeters of this mixture. Dig shallow furrows. Scrape a stick through the soil in your nursery container, spacing the resulting furrows 5 centimeters apart. These furrows will serve as shallow drains that can help prevent moisture from drowning the seeds or their budding roots. Place the seeds 1 centimeter apart from one another inside each furrow. Protect the seeds by covering them with a very thin layer of your soil mixture. Immediately water after planting the seeds. Moisten the soil, but do not drench it. After planting the seeds, all you need to do is provide an occasional sprinkle of water when the surface of the soil dries out. When the seedlings grow to a height of 20 to 25 centimeters, they are ready to be transplanted into a permanent location in your garden. Ideally, you should find a spot that receives full sun and one that does not have any competitive roots, like tree roots, nearby. Full sun means a full 6 hours of sunlight daily, if not more. The area should also be free of weeds. If there are a few weeds, make sure that you remove them before planting. The vines need space to climb and spread. As well, ideally, you should look for climbing structures already set in place, like a wire fence, balcony, or pergola. If none of these are available, you could install a trellis instead. Passion fruit needs light, deep soil that contains plenty of organic material. The stuff in your yard probably is not of high enough quality to do the trick on its own, so you'll need to make a few improvements before you can plant either seeds or vines. Mix the soil with compost before you do any planting. Compost improves both the texture and nutritional value of the soil. You could also try organic rotten manure, leaf mold, or other green plant waste. If the soil is especially dense, you could lighten it by mixing in a handful of coarse sand. Pay attention to the pH of the soil, as well. The pH should be between 6.5 and 7.5. If the soil is too acidic, mix in ground dolomite or agricultural lime. Dig a separate hole for each seedling. Each hole should be twice as wide as the current width of your plant, and the depth should be at least as deep as the container your seedling currently rests in. Carefully dig or slide the passion fruit seedling and its root system out of the container. Place the root system in the center of the hole, then loosely fill in the rest of the hole with soil until the plant feels secure. Handle the roots as little as possible during the transfer. The roots are very sensitive, and if you damage them during the process, you could destroy the plant. Spread pellet chicken manure or another organic, slow-release fertilizer around the base of the plant. Also spread an organic mulch, like straw or wood chips, around the base of the plant. The entire root system needs access to the fertilizer and mulch. For best results, gently push or dig some of the cover into the top layer of the soil after spreading the fertilizer and mulch around the plant's base. Use a watering can or garden hose to gently water the seedlings after they have been planted. Make sure that the water is very moist, but do not allow muddy puddles to form, since this could be an indication that you have provided more water than the soil can absorb and drain. Passion fruit plants are heavy eaters, so you will need to provide plenty of water and fertilizer throughout the growing season. You should apply fertilizer in the spring and once every 4 weeks throughout the summer season. A final feeding should also be done in the mid-autumn. Use organic, slow-release fertilizers that are low in nitrogen. Chicken manure pellets are a good option. If the area you live in gets plenty of rainfall, you might not need to water the plant too often. If you are going through a drought, though, or if you only live in moderately moist conditions, you will need to water the vine at least once a week. Never allow the surface of the soil to completely dry out. Passion fruit plants are heavy eaters, so you will need to provide plenty of water and fertilizer throughout the growing season. You should apply fertilizer in the spring and once every 4 weeks throughout the summer season. A final feeding should also be done in the mid-autumn. Use organic, slow-release fertilizers that are lower in nitrogen. Chicken manure pellets are a good option. If the area you live in gets plenty of rainfall, you might not need to water the plant too often. If you are going through a drought, though, or if you only live in moderately moist conditions, you will need to water the vine at least once a week. Never allow the surface of the soil to completely dry out. When the plant is new, lateral branches that come from the main stem should be nipped off to the level of the wire. The 2 side branches coming from the main stem should then be bent around the top wire of your structure and forces to grow in opposite directions. Once the side branches are spread apart, lateral branches can develop from them and hang down loosely. Since passion fruit plants require so much food and water, the enriched soil often becomes a target for unwanted weeds. You need to remove as many of these nearby weeds as possible so that resources are not being directed away from the passion fruit plant. Keep 60 to 90 centimeters of space around each side of the vine base weed-free. Use organic methods of weed removal and do not use chemicals. Mulch can help prevent weeds from shooting up out of the ground, and hand-pulling weeds that do sprout is another good option. The rest of the garden can have other plants and weeds in it, but you should keep away plants that could spread disease or attract pests. Legume plants, in particular, are dangerous to keep around passion fruit plants. Since passion fruit plants require so much food and water, the enriched soil often becomes a target for unwanted weeds. You need to remove as many of these nearby weeds as possible so that resources are not being directed away from the passion fruit plant. Keep 60 to 90 centimeters of space around each side of the vine base weed-free. Use organic methods of weed removal and do not use chemicals. Mulch can help prevent weeds from shooting up out of the ground, and hand-pulling weeds that do sprout is another good option. The rest of the garden can have other plants and weeds in it, but you should keep away plants that could spread disease or attract pests. Legume plants, in particular, are dangerous to keep around passion fruit plants. Usually, bees will take care of the pollination process without any additional help from you. If there are no bees in your area, though, you might need to do some work yourself. To hand pollinate the plants, take a small, clean paintbrush and collect the pollen from male flowers. Wipe the collected pollen onto female flowers using the same brush. You could also touch the anthers and stigmatic surfaces of each flower with your thumb and index finger as you walk along the rows. You should not use insecticides until you identify the early stages of a pest problem. When you use pesticides, use organic options since chemical options can ruin the fruit produced and make it unsafe for consumption. The biggest pest-related problems are aphids, vine girders, and coleopteran beetle larvae. Aphids can usually be discouraged by sprinkling red pepper around the base of the plant. Get rid of vine girders by mixing an organic insecticide in a tar base. Spread this solution around the base of the main stem, and get rid of damaged vines. To get rid of beetle larvae, you will need to use a systemic insecticide before the plant goes to flower. There are a handful of diseases you should try to prevent. When you spot signs of plant disease, you also need to do what you can to get rid of it and prevent the disease from spreading. Passion fruit vines can fall victim to rot and viral diseases. Cellar rot and root rot must be prevented ahead of time by providing adequate soil drainage. You can attempt to treat virus-infected plants with a commercial solution, but usually, you will need to cut off and burn the affected vines in order to preserve any of the remaining plants. Passion fruit mottle virus, passion fruit ring spot virus, and cucumber mosaic virus are your most common threats. It can take a year to a year and a half before your plant will produce any fruit, but once it does, you can harvest this fruit and eat it. Typically, ripe passion fruit will drop from the vine as soon as they are ready for consumption. The drop itself does not